Welcome to JGTCR, I'm Cope, and today we are tuning the C3 Corvette Stingray Convertible. Let's get into it. This Corvette drives very similarly to its non-convertible counterpart. However, it does feel a touch more slide happy. The handling is decent, but it does have bouts of understeer and oversteer depending on how we approach turns. If we are reasonable with our driving method and smooth on our inputs, the car handles reasonably well. The power is quite good for the age of the vehicle. It does spin the wheels if we are heavy-handed with our driving, but holds the road if we are smooth with our inputs. Power delivery can be aggressive if we lack self-control on the gas pedal. However, a touch of throttle modulation makes sure we get that power to the road effectively. When wheel spin does occur, the slides are reasonably easy to control. However, the tail does like to drag the front off the road. The brakes do an acceptable job of slowing us down, however, they are a bit spongy. This can turn into death wobbles if we try and make too many adjustments under braking, so it's best to brake confidently in as straight a line as possible. Let's collect our time. "8 minutes, 23.2 seconds. Let's take a look at our race tune. The main focus of this tune on the C3 was to stop the tail end being so slide happy. This was achieved with a natural frequency of 2.6 on the rear and ballast of 120 kilos at a ballast positioning of 50 over the rear wheels. Acceleration sensitivity was minimized and downforce also played a good part in taming the tail end. Let's see it in action. The tune for the completely modified C3 has come together nicely, but the tail end can still have some bite if we don't respect how to put the power down to the ground. The handling is great in most cases. It guides the car as is needed on circuit. It is sharp, maneuverable, and quick to respond to our inputs. There is some wobble in this car due to raising so the wheels don't foul on the body, but it works well when it's settled into turns. The power is good and delivery is smooth for the most part. Higher RPM can cause slippage at the rear, and we must be prepared to dance on the throttle to get it under control. It's all part of the fun of driving this vehicle. The brakes are perfectly matched for the application. They slow us down well with some decent wiggle room for adjustments while braking. Let's collect our time. "6 minutes, 28.8 seconds. And now the drift tune. The tail end of this C3 was very slippy, so we had to use 200 kilos of ballast at a ballast positioning of 32 over the rear wheels. The remainder of our drift tune is par for the course as far as how we do things around these here parts. So let's get into the action and drift Suzuka. The Corvette C3 is a rather active drift car. There is always adjustments and decisions to be made regarding the drift. If the drift style of preference is high maintenance, then this one is for you. The additional ballast over the rear wheels means that we lead the drift with the tail. This can take some getting used to, but when it all comes together, it's golden. The handling is perfect for the application. It's very sharp and the car responds well to the inputs and adjustments we make while drifting. The steering can get lazy if we do not manage our wheel speed correctly. It will hang on to the drift angle longer than expected and not make the switch in drift direction when requested. The power is capable of kicking the tail end if we drive appropriately, but it will struggle if we fall out of power band. There just doesn't seem to be enough torque to pull us back up by the bootstraps into the drift if we fall out. The power delivery is smooth, but it can get aggressive in the top end of the rev range, so throttle management is key. Let's do an engine swap. Here at JGTCR, we drive it so you don't have to. The C3 with just the engine swap is absolutely ridiculous to drive. It has way too much power for its own good. We simply cannot put the power down to the ground in any kind of meaningful way. The handling can be acceptable if we are extremely calculated with our inputs. This Stingray already had a higher tendency for stepping out the tail end in most conditions, and this engine swap has just amplified that fact. Dealing with understeer is now almost a constant chore, especially when braking and modulating the throttle coming out of turns. Finding the right balance between over and understeer is a tedious task and an effort in futility. The power is excessive and difficult to plant on the road. Throttle modulation does help, but not much at all. Power delivery is complete wheel spin territory. It's best to just throw it into 4th gear and drive it like an auto, only dropping down gears to rotate through turns. Let's collect our time. (8 minutes, 13 seconds flat). On to the race tune. Our race tune for the engine swapped C3 is based on the non-engine swapped counterpart, with some mild adjustments. The most important of these adjustments is the ballast, now at 200 kilos at a ballast positioning of 50 over the rear wheels, and the differential settings initial torque reduced to 50% at 30 points and acceleration sensitivity reduced to 5 points. Let's see it in action. This is a brute force power kind of vehicle, with a twitchy nature when it comes to steering inputs. A dangerous combo that is extremely challenging to master, and not for the faint of heart. The handling is extremely twitchy, and combined with a tendency to break traction and get the wrigglies, believe it or not, this C3 Corvette is a handful to control at the best of times. The steering is very responsive, and it has to be to correct all that goes on at the tail end of this car. Trust me when I say you should definitely pack a spare set of undies when driving this vehicle. There is far too much power for this chassis to handle. It consistently pushes slides and wheel spins on straights. Throttle modulation is absolutely critical to maintain control. And yes, the power delivery is extremely aggressive and will keep us on our toes at all times when trying to lay down some decent lap times. The brakes work well and are a source of stability if things start to get messy. A light hold or jabbing on the brakes can re-stabilize the vehicle in many scenarios. Let's collect our time. 6 minutes 26 seconds flat. Let's sneak a peek at the drift tune. Once again, our race tune for the engine swapped C3 is very similar to the non-engine swapped counterpart, cause when you're onto something good, you stick to it. The major difference between both vehicles is the ballast of 200 kilos at the ballast positioning of 50 over the rear wheels. The rest of our tune is only a slight variation. Let's drift Suzuka. The C3 convertible with the engine swap is quite a versatile drift car, depending on the drift style we like to use. Slowboat Rodriguez or McDrifty Gonzalez, and even a combination of both if you can code switch when drifting on the fly. The handling is amazing when using either drift style, considerably accurate and agile to boot, making car placement on circuit a cinch. But be aware that bouncing off the limiter dulls the steering due to excess wheel speed. The power we have available to us is massive and must be contained with throttle modulation. Power delivery is aggressive but solid for the most part. At higher RPM, it does spell danger as wheel speed is an issue. However, if we regulate the throttle properly and hold RPM at a decent rate, the drift is beautiful. If not, we suffer the consequences as the tail is very Mr. Whippy and will spin around on us in an instant. The C3 convertible with the engine swap is a well-rounded drift car if we drive well. And that's all we have for you today, so until next time, keep racing!